Also, Vern, you know what we haven't talked about with our experts, Mark Seid and Karen Brosi? We haven't talked about estate tax proposals from our candidates for the election. And so I just want to throw out or ask you both what you've been telling your clients who call. Karen, you said you had a client call because she'd been into her estate attorney and he was recommending some year-end moves in anticipation of the results of the election.
Correct. And this is, of course, a very high net worth taxpayer who had already actually made substantial gifts about a dozen years ago. But of course, about a dozen years ago, those gifts would have been well under $5 million. And so, with an 11.5 million current exclusion, her estate attorney, of course, said, we need to address this and we need to be able to move right away. So, what her attorney said to her was this, that it was his opinion that if the president was not reelected and that it became a Biden presidency with support in Congress, of course, being the optimal here, that it was very likely that the estate exclusion would go down. Because, of course, President Trump has stated in his tax plan that he believes it should just be extended and made permanent as is. So this is what the attorney was concerned with, is with a change in presidency, support in Congress, that estate exclusion could come down, and it could come down right away, or rather quickly. And so they wanted to be able to act. And his window, he thought, was between date of election and end of year. That's not necessarily that he was opining that the tax law change would occur right away after election. But what he believed is that if there was a substantial enough change or change in power in order to generate a change in the estate tax that might occur during next year, 2021, it would be retroactive to the beginning of the year. And so that was his take on it, was we need to be able to jump. We need to be able to move if we're so inclined to, if this is what we think can happen.
And Mark, what have you heard from your clients? And I know that Vice President Biden has a few suggestions and is encouraged by the Democrats in the House and the Senate to make some changes in estate tax. Tell me what you've been hearing from your clients.
Well, I've got the clients that have been looking at some advice we've been giving for the last couple of years. After we got the large increase to $11 million and change indexed for inflation, we're looking at saying, go ahead and get those gifts out there up to that 11 million plus. The big concern, of course, we had is when that temporary increase were to drop back down, would there be a clawback? And we got that answer last year. No, there isn't a clawback. The IRS isn't going to come back in and assess tax on gifts that were in excess of a threshold that's dropped. So what we've heard from the clients is, I want to make sure I can do as much tax-free now gifting to my heirs so that I don't have the tax liability on my death and they're not stuck paying the tax when I can take care of it today. And this isn't the person that has, of course, just 11.5 million to give entirely in their estate. It's the person with substantially more. So we're seeing those people that are already acting, and they have been, as we've been going along, telling them, either make the plans to do it now or before what we thought was the scheduled end of that $11 million threshold. So what I've seen so far is people making changes in their estate plans and what they're anticipating doing with current gifts and gifts over the next few years. If we have, as has been suggested, a potential change that is right in this next year and potentially retroactive to January 1st of 2021, then I think some people would be caught off guard thinking they've planned for the last few years on how to transfer their wealth effectively, and now they're going to be in a position where that transfer is going to, system's going to be interrupted. So we don't have a true knowledge of could they do that quickly and would they do that. I think in a Biden and Democrat House and Senate, I think we would have the ability to let these changes that we've been dealing with, this inflation and the exclusion amount, come to an end. I don't think they would actually push it immediately to end, but that's, like you said, in a trifecta, that's quite possible.
Well, and my client has something slightly different that I don't know how we would plan around. He has lots and lots and lots of deferred gains into his properties, his investment properties, lots of depreciation, recap, all these things. And he asked what would happen to step up in basis if we had a change in the president. And Mark, I believe that's in Vice President Biden's plan.
Very clearly, Biden does not want the step up in basis at death. So that won't be included in a revision of the estate tax if that goes forward. So the planning that has been done in the past for a lot of estates has always counted on how to preserve that step up in basis, how to make sure that it's maximized. And under the Biden plan, there will be no step up in basis.
But,
so that
and
changes
this client
plans.
is particularly a President Trump supporter. This client said, but if President Trump is reelected, Karen, I might get indexing on my basis, inflation indexing on the basis. And I said, yes, that is one of the things that I think President Trump has suggested.
Well, and I think that is correct. That is one of the things in the Trump tax proposal is an indexing of, for capital gains purposes, an indexing of basis. So that's always sort of been the trade-off, hasn't it, in esoteric discussions about the estate tax. Which would I rather have? Would I rather have a no estate tax? Let's start there. Why not? No estate tax, no limit on it.
I say yes.
Or would I rather have some limit, but with a step up in basis? And of course, we like the step up because it gives us a way to transfer without. You want to interrupt me, don't you?
No, he just wants, we're just raising our hand telling you
you're
how we
raising your
vote.
hands to vote.
We're voting.
Oh, I like that. You're voting. Yes, would you?
just
Okay, I like
voting.
that. So, yes, of course, and as tax preparers, we all have almost always favored the step up in basis. Give me a limit if you have to on what the excludable estate is, but let me keep my step up for more reasons than just the transfer of wealth without, further complication of income tax thereafter. Because in some cases, there are assets that simply we don't know the basis on them. Basis is always our hardest job. And so this was always one of our sort of court of last resorts. Die with this asset so that it can be valued. Because I think that's also entering into the discussion. I mean, I'm in favor of talking to my wealthy clients about transferring assets in the event that President Trump is not reelected and a change in the estate tax occurs, or the estate tax exclusion occurs. I'm in favor of talking to my clients about that, but I also have to caution them, remember what you're talking about, which is a gift, which means basis is going to transfer in this case. And there won't be an increase in basis. And so it's a trade-off between what would happen if you took the whole picture. Now I'm going to take the whole picture just to annoy you. So I decide that I'm going to give away before the end of the year, let's call it a flat $11 million of assets that have basis equal to about half of that. Okay, so let's say that's my job. That's what I'm going to do because I want to get that 11 million transferred because I'm dead sure that next year the estate exclusion is going to go down to $500,000 or to $5 million rather, in half to about $5.5 million. So I want to get that stuff out of my estate because I got way more assets than that right now. But now what have I done? I've gotten $5.5 million out of my estate that potentially could be taxed for estate purposes at 40%. But I've moved it into the hands of my heirs now at a lower basis. And under the assumption that this lower estate tax comes in the Democratic plan overall for tax reform, that also means the capital gains rates have gone up and that the top capital gains rate has gone up significantly to 39.6%. So what have I done? And add investment income tax on top of that. I actually may have, by jumping that way, by not transferring, or by transferring basis, I might have actually created a larger income tax effect on the disposition of those assets than if I had just waited and my estate had to pay the estate tax on it.
Well, let's see. Following debate format, I believe, Mark, you have the last comment. Not that we were debating, nor does anyone know debate format anymore.
The last word.
I have my crystal ball in the shop right now, but that's really what we need. There's no real way of knowing, as Karen's described very succinctly. Should we make those transfers today and take the risk that we will end up with as much, if not more, tax on the next generation, or should we hold those today? And this is something we have to give the clients the knowledge of and let them make their decision based on what they believe is going to happen. We can tell them, if we have the sweep in the White House, the Senate, and the House, everything going to the Democrats, and they get what they want, then this is your tax impact. And if it continues with our current president and perhaps a divided House and Senate, or even a Republican House and Senate, this is what it is on the opposite side. Let them make their decisions knowing what the impact will be, or potentially. Our job's not to, like I said, you mentioned, not to tell them be a Republican, be a Democrat, be an independent. Our job is to tell them, if these things happen, the different party agendas could have a certain impact on your taxes. And I think for our wealthy clients, especially our elderly wealthy clients that are nearing the end of their lives, these estate planning questions are truly significant. We're not talking about saving a few $1,000s here and there. We're talking about millions. And this is a significant discussion that probably should be occurring not only with our clients, but their estate planning attorneys as well, so that they can get an overall picture of what do we do and what do we plan for, and can we be poised to act quickly if necessary, which I think, Karen, was your big point. Is some of these people are talking about acting between November 3rd, which is, you're saying the date of the election, but of course even that, with the delay in all of the balloting, it may not be until later than that, and the end of the year. It's a tiny window. So they should probably be planning ahead of time, have their documents drafted and ready to be signed, right after Christmas.
Thank you. And thank you to our guests, Karen Brosi and Mark Seid, tax practitioners, real life conversations about taxes. And we're happy to have you. Maybe we can have a conversation after the election when we know more answers. But thank you for being here.
Thank you.